What is up, you beautiful sons of guns? We've got Aud 64 versus the Shambler today. It's a TVT on Potidaea. This is a map by Biddy B. There's a lot of things that end in the syllable E, or the sound E, and, you know, that's pretty cool. TVT on a Biddy B map. We've got Aud in the top left. He is... Oh, is he Asparagus? He is. Asparagus Terran in the top left. Meanwhile, we got the Shambler as the White Terran in the bottom right. And he is actually going Stockade. Well, that's no surprise. We know Shambler. So TVT, notorious matchup for being quite difficult to close a game out on. We've seen lots of slugfests between these two players. Though I will add that caveat that really it's only difficult to close out if one player doesn't get a really stark advantage in the very early stages of the game. That being said, there are some things that come to mind, like, well, you know, you've seen the video length already, so you know if this is a long game or not. And, you know, there's also those other things, like, would I really cast a blowout match? Well, maybe if it was part of a sequence, you know what I mean? But anyway... all that spoilerific stuff aside, I'm expecting this game to be one where we get a little bit into the meat of things. Of course, I will point out this was submitted by Shambler. I remember when he was asking Aud if he could submit for cast the matches that he is playing here, or anything from their set of games. Aud said, "I guess you'll push the one that you beat me in." So, you know, you judge for yourself. Does Shambler post his dubs? We'll find out. But that being said, he has started annotating his submissions in the Discord server with things like, oh yeah, well, this is part of the final series score was this. So, you know, there have been times where he's only posted like a game he won, but the series score was like, you know, not in his favor, stuff like that. So maybe that way he, you know, ameliorates any concerns of dub posting. Just like the Night Fox. Now, this Vulture goes out live without laying more than a single mine. Kind of interesting here from Aud. He clearly wants to try to hunt down the Mason. That is something that in TVT I think is pretty impactful if you can not really punish your opponent from scouting. But in this case, the Mavericks could have actually come out to try to zone this Mason's, escort it back to safety. It's kind of interesting there that it doesn't end up happening. So no stim from Mr. Shambler, and a couple of mines are going to be laid. Remember, this is high ground technically, so you get a weapon range bonus from standing on top of it, as unorthodox as that very well is. Still something that you can remember. I think it's technically buildable, but the repeating tile makes me wonder. Maybe that's like an unbuildable tile from a doodad or something that got scattered over there. Or maybe it's just some other intentional thing. Either way, definitely something that you got to watch out for as the Vultures come on down, very much giving Aud the freedom to expand. But I will point out, Shambler does have a star pad. He's making an ant seal, which I guess is just in, you know, his way of being able to punch out eventually. I love the mine coverage that we already see being laid, especially down here in the bottom left, going to inform Aud of any drops that might come out. Shambler has been trying to add drops to his style, and I guess it's something that, you know, he might not be super good at by default or whatever, and that's why he's trying to learn it. But it also makes sense with his style if he's going to play TVT, because he does like to lean more on the Stockade. That being said, he's actually going a 1-1-1 build, obviously with the Ministry before adding the Fulcrum. The Ant Seal here to sweep the mines, give him vision on the high ground as well. Pretty important stuff here. If you're too close to the lobotomy mine, when it pops, you will see it right over there. Yeah, it slows the Ant Seal, as you can see there. Obviously, there's only some Cyclops over here in this location, and Cyclops are uniquely bad versus Ant Seals because their projectile does not actually proc its passive if absorbed by the Ant Seal. Kind of a neat little interaction between those two units. So, gotta watch out for that as well. But yeah, you know, there wasn't really anything that was going to punish him. Oh, speaking of a punish, though, 3 Vultures slipping the net. There's only 1 Maverick over here, instantly one-tapped. And the Masons won't last very much longer either. It does take 4 Vulture hits to kill a Mason, so the damage will be somewhat ameliorated by that. The Mavericks are already on the way back. They are not stimmed, though. Or maybe the stim already wore off. We can test that pretty easily. Looks like, yeah, they were not stimmed backwards over here. So, you know, this is going to amount to a decent amount of damage, and in a mirror matchup, that can be pretty significant. Aud could have done a bit better on the Vulture control, but still getting some good kills. He should comfortably feel ahead here. This is slowing Shambler down quite a bit. The stim finally comes out, and the Mavericks will apprehend those dastardly Vultures, but they have been villains in this section of the map. And look at this behind this, so much mech. So much everything. Scrapyard's on the way. 2 more Fulcrums coming. I guess when you see Scrapyards, you might think that Aud just wants to kind of capitalize on his current form. But yeah, Shambler looking like he got absolutely bamboozled by that Vulture run-by. Did not have the forces left. And that's kind of the risk that you take when you don't add the second Stockade sooner. and instead you go for that Fulcrum. Plus you went for a Star Pad, which was never going to stop the Vultures, even if you had Wraiths there, which you wouldn't really build that often. You're not going to be able to stop them too much. So yeah, definitely a rough spot. He tried to go for an Expand to keep up with his opponent, but then he tried to go Fulcrum, and he still hasn't made anything out of it. Yeah, those are the kinds of things that can be real risky. I guess he also was caught making a Vestry so that he could add a Shaman to his army. But he's going to see if he can move across and maybe exert some will on the map. It seems kind of unlikely, especially with that anchor coming down. Admittedly, you don't have vision of this area without something on top of that particular bridge, but that does make holding it very awkward. And, you know, the cliff advantage will partially neutralize the advantage gained by the anchor. The anchor gives +2, cliff gives +1. I still think that everything here from Aoud is going to be more than enough. It's only 11 Mavericks. There's a little bit of healing over here, but yeah, I think when he scouts that many Cyclops plus the anchor, and when you have detection, you can see what's inside the anchor. You can click on it. Shambler will be able to use the Ant Seal for that purpose to see that there's Cyclops in the anchor. Okay, that's pretty rough. We got double Watchdog off to the side, and a good ring over here with some Blackjacks, preemptively expecting Trojans. We actually don't see that coming for Shambler. He's just trying to catch back up, economically speaking. And, you know, Aoud hasn't been super steady with worker production, so he's not as far ahead as he used to be. I hate to say it, but, you know, like when you see that kind of successful worker raid, you just expect that the player on the other side of it is going to work out pretty well. Instead, though, it does feel like Aoud is maybe a little bit less ahead than he ought to be, and now he's fallen into maybe passivity. We do obviously have the Blackjacks already pre-scrambled over here. The Ant Seals are going to try to accept this initial challenge, but we've got plenty of units coming back in. There really shouldn't be too much that Shambler can do here. He's lost both of his Ant Seals already. And yeah, a couple of stim packs. He'll get a couple of workers that were making some watchdogs. At the very least, he's caught back up when it comes to the worker count. He's actually marginally ahead now, which again, I think points to some kind of sloppy play from Aoud on the macro department. But the military is looking good. You know, he's got all of these Fulcrums running. He's got a pretty big army. He's got Phalanxes out already. This Fulcrum has been moved over here, or actually, the second one has been constructed. It's actually more Phalanxes are going to be coming out of Shambler than there are going to be coming out of Aoud, which could actually shift the tides. Shift the tides. Shambler typing again. Nobody knows what he's talking about. Nobody ever does. But that never stopped Shambler. Adding some Watchdogs. I guess he might be talking about the fact that Watchdogs were put down over here, but, like, you know, when your opponent has a Star Pad, and you scouted it because you ran it in, you know that drops are a possibility. Still, the elevator did a lot more, added a lot more value than I thought was going to happen in that position. Not that Shambler got that much done, just that he didn't get immediately stepped on. I thought that's what was going to happen. Do we have any mines with these Vultures? Looks like they've already been spent. Good on Aoud for doing that, but also means that he can't really set up a fortified containment position out here if he wants to. Just kind of take the rest of the map. You can see he's going for that third base on location. Such is his tempo. Adding more Palladiums as well, at least one more. And a couple of Vultures are actually on their way out, so that's kind of interesting. He's going to poke and see what he sees over here. There's a couple of Phalanxes that show themselves. Now, the Phalanx range does reach to the extremis of that position. You can see Shambler going to go ahead and lift his structure so that he can actually watch over this position, because otherwise he doesn't have vision. No Ant Seal in position after losing them all. Another Fulcrum there. Ant Seal returns to the battlefield. And a Trojan was also remade. This anchor is empty right now. Good worker count for both players. Stockade getting whittled down a little bit by the Blackjacks. He's looking for the Cyclops to see if he can do some friendly damage, but Blackjacks don't do that, obviously, so. That will almost burn down, actually, but not quite. Almost get to burning stage, I should say. And we have a Fulcrum being placed on the foreground here. Okay, Aoud is definitely thinking, I just want to be able to locally build Phalanxes to hard contain this man. And there's tier 2. Very fast tier 2 for Aoud. It does make a lot of sense. Shambler is going to try to push out. And remember, he has cliff advantage as long as he remains in this grass area. So some of these Phalanxes are going to pop off in that respect with the extra weapon range. The Clerics are trying their best. They are not being focused down. There's actually not that much over here for Aoud. Somehow behind all of that. He's shellacking a good number of them, but his Phalanxes are caught. They are not, they were not spread out, so they were taking a lot of splash there. One more Phalanx goes down. A Fulcrum is out here to go ahead and see what it can do. You can land on Phalanxes to try to force a siege, an unsiege, but it doesn't work if they're already deployed. So that's a little bit awkward. He's just going to go ahead and build Vultures in his face, apparently. Ironically, I don't think that Fulcrum would be able to finish the Vulture were it not for some interruption on that front. So the Fulcrum finishes for Aoud as well, but that might have been a little bit too bold of a plan. And this is actually one of the things I was thinking about, right? Is like I did call out earlier, we've got, you know, multiple Palladiums, not now, because bizarrely Shambler has decided to lift his Fulcrum off the dome and use it for frontline construction. Atlas on the way for him as well off of 2 bases. And a 4th base being constructed by Aoud. This is a little bit bold because, again, his military count is not actually that high. It's not that good. He definitely needs to add a little bit more, I think. He's adding even more Fulcrums, despite his Tier 2 just popping. And he's adding Captaincy and Starport over here, as well as a Mantle. Just a one of everything. A Tier 2 1/1/1. This 4th base could be discovered by Shambler, but I feel like he has no reason to suspect that Aoud is going to a 4th base at this point. He just broke out of his contain and kind of roving the map right now. He's got this Watchdog will be the early warning system. I see even a reservoir being put down now. Whether the reservoir is scouted, looks like now it is. Here comes Aoud to try to swoop in to try to respond to this. He's got 4 phalanxes, not bad. It's not quite as many as the 6 that are here for Shambler. And the supplementary forces don't actually clear the sort of initial hurdles. So it feels like Aoud, kind of caught in a tech transition, could end up losing his 3rd base, which is a non-trivial aspect here. Did we get a 3rd Palladium at some point for Shambler? No, I guess yes, he did. He's also got a lot of idle Masons over here. Just pumping nothing but phalanx, and there is no air unit, air force here for Aoud. And certainly nothing that's fast enough. He doesn't have like a horde of vultures, or for example, to kind of try to run in. I think the worst thing in TVT that you can do when you're going up against... You can see some Vulture transition now, which makes a lot of sense. The worst thing you can do in this kind of position, Aoud notably not pulling his workers either. He could have just lifted the Ministry to do that. But yeah, the worst thing you can do versus a tank player is go like Blackjack or Cyclops or even Goliath. I don't think any of those options works. I think what you really need at that point is a lot of vultures to make it so they simply cannot keep in a position sieged. You have to force them to unsiege, and then you have your own phalanxes to follow it up, or indeed some air units like the Gorgons. So you can see him running forward. He could be laying some mines. Now he's going to go ahead and go for it. Obviously, these phalanxes are not long for this world. He stuns even the air units there, so the Blackjacks can even help out there, bringing down some of the ant seals and such. And that is a wrap on that front. So a couple more phalanxes are even going to get caught here. Sloppy play from Shambler as he's trying to scramble back some kind of control. Adds a mantle here for it. Ah, okay. So the Gorgon is going to help slow down the phalanx to catch it, obviously. But really what we need to see is, like, what is the composition going to end up being for Aoud? He's dropped down below his opponent in terms of worker count, but maybe it doesn't matter. He's adding Strigas out of that captaincy. I suppose that's also trying to counteract the phalanx count. Do we have much anti-air for Shambler? It doesn't look like it. His 3rd base is going to be stuffed, and with enough Gorgon shots... Oh, he's going after the Masons. I was going to say he could actually focus on the Ministry and force a kill there, because the Ministries will be slowed by the Gorgons. The Gorgons could even do it right here, right now. Yeah, this will force some kind of action out of him. Let's see if Aoud actually finishes the job on that, because Shambler could just send some units to try to fight it. But this is what I was talking about earlier. You can just kind of freeze it in place with the Gorgons, because it adds a stacking slow that eventually reaches 100%. At 20 stacks. So that's just one example. The Watchdog is going to try to come in a little bit closer. I don't know that that's going to be quite enough range. Yeah, not even close. So yeah, this unless yeah, okay, here we go. The Mavericks will come in and try to stem after it, and the Ministry will escape. But that's all right. I mean, he's got more units back here. He's added some Sentinels, which will give a little bit of value. Needs to have way more saturation on that 3rd base. Fulcrum from Aoud floated over in this location, funnily enough, just to keep watch on the island bases. Those rarely come into play on this map. And he's kind of got 3 base mining between this 4th base that he's got over here at 9 o'clock and this 3rd base here. He's effectively gone 3 bases of mining. Though I will point out, maybe not, because his main base is depleted on minerals. Feels like he needs to add more production, but doesn't really have a sterling economy after all that damage. This Trojan is empty, but heading off to scout nonetheless. Good from Shambler as he sends out more of his mech units. He's got cataphracts, phalanxes. His phalanx count is very respectable. You have to respect that count. Trojan was caught and died over land, so not immediately apparent that there was nothing in there. Although I guess if he had selected it, he had ant seals with that force. Now the unprotected 9 o'clock is going to be raided by vultures. Good move from Shambler here to try to reclaim some map control. Remember, he's moving out on the other side of the map as well, especially as the army becomes obviously here. That is going to be a big factor. Mine breaking through there, slowing the Durandal. This is a great time for Shambler to effect change on the map elsewhere. Could try to hit the rally before many more units arrive. and could, of course, try to pressure that natural or that third base. I think the third base would be the best target, but now that Aoud is moving out a little bit further forward, he's actually going to see the army here and potentially be able to sandwich it. Instead, he's going to try to fall back. The one token Blackjack is the offering. Anseal's going to do their best to try to protect those Gorgons. No sieged phalanxes here for Aoud 64. That being said, Shambler has actually struggled to get most of his in siege. Now he's going to go ahead and deploy them. Striga's taking a lot of punishment. Durandals as well before they finally go down. Now the phalanxes will go ahead and deploy the sirens, pulling targets towards them. Little bit anti-synergy if they hit at the wrong time. You can see they're actually dodging some of the projectiles of the other phalanxes as a result of that. And yeah, this looks like with the Anseals all the way over here off to the side, that is not where Aoud wanted his protective forces. And, you know, the couple cataphracts here are actually going to kill a few of those Anseals. It feels like the margin was so big for Aoud to come out ahead, and then at some point, oh god, oh dear. At some point, it just felt like maybe there was a little bit too much, too many macro slips early on, and certainly a couple of moves that have allowed Shambler to come back into this game. Some credit to him, especially with that Vulture run by. He traded super cost efficiently there, a much more technical army that Aoud ended up losing, whereas it was mostly just like Phalanx Cataphract from Shambler. Most of those available in Tier 1. No healing yet for Aoud, so those Blackjacks are destined to be perpetually darkened and slow. He's got a lot of Fulcrums. He's starting to switch into Goliath Man. Looks like with some Phalanx. Again, I think versus other Phalanx, that is a really bad ask, but I will point out there's actually not so many Phalanx left. Shambler is mostly reinvested back in a Cataphract. And I think if you go Goliath Striga, Cataphracts won't end up holding out against that. Durandals are a nice little insurance policy as well. And 2 more mantles are coming online here for Aoud. He's adding another starport. I wonder if that's going to intentionally end up being something on the lines of just more mass Gorgon production, just to kind of throw them in there. His split is pretty good. He's pre-sieging as well. So if Shambler walks up that location, that could be pretty bad. Only a couple Sentinels over here. Not at the most time that he's going to have. Looks like the first unit from Shambler is revealed. He's going to go ahead and unpack his Phalanx, move over here from that reinforcement angle that he's been using this entire time. And now the Sentinels, they are going to be torn down. 1, 2, 3 Sieged Phalanxes over here. We'll track their damage as Durandals are in the mineral line of the third base. That is not a good spot. That's a very dangerous position for your Durandals to be in. Not for you, but for your opponent. The Phalanx is unsieged this entire time, just trying to be a wall of damage. Now that most of the threats seem to be gone, they are going to go ahead and deploy. Those Cataphracts, though, they can wreak havoc on them. Remember, the Phalanx loses its armor when it's deployed, and these TVT fights are just going Shambler's way in a very bizarre manner for Aoud. It must be. Like, he must be so perplexed. Like, how am I losing when his Durandals weren't even in there in the front line? And a lot of it just comes down to the Phalanx usage, I think. Clumps up, doesn't split them, doesn't deploy them for a long period of time. That's a lot of DPS he's missing out on. Another rally out from Shambler. The reservoir will go down. The ministry has burned down as well. Was not lifted in the heat of that. And certainly there were no opportunities for a for him to evacuate the workers, it looked like. Now, more Sentinels are coming online over here. We do still have that small throng of Blackjacks off to the south that they can come up the ramp for. And these Sentinels are going to finish up at pretty much the perfect time. Maybe that one Mason will end up going down before that one finishes. That could be pretty monumental here. Blackjacks have been conscripted into the army. A couple more Sentinels come on in. The one that was incomplete does end up falling. And the Cleric-Goliath combo is acting as a pretty good front line here for the Catas. That's another thing to point out. Anseal and healing usage has been better for Shambler than for Aoud. Aoud has not invested into a single stockade, let alone a vestry. And his Anseal usage has been subpar, losing a lot of them, just kind of waypointing them in. It was kind of topical to point that out because we just saw his Anseal kind of fly in, right? But he also just obviously had those 4 that died at Cataphracts earlier. GG is going to be called, and, well, Shambler will somehow survive being attacked by 3 Vultures early on in the game to that degree. An uncharacteristic slip, I think, for Aoud, because I still think despite the Phalanx usage, despite the compositional element of like the Anseals healing a lot of units, the Clerics healing a lot of units, well, the Anseals shielding a lot of units, I should say. Obviously, those played to Shambler's favor. I really feel like this comes back to just somehow slipping up on the macro department. And then when it was once again an even game, despite his Vulture's heroic sacrifice, killing, I feel like 9-10 Masons or something, maybe less than that, but certainly felt like a lot. And it was a lot at the first start. Despite that, once the game became even, then now your compositional choices really matter. Now it really matters the moves you make tactically and strategically. So good to see Shambler still in form. Obviously, this was a tourney practice game, but it's nice to see a Shambler dub once in a while because obviously we didn't see too many of those in the March Invitational. And I do earnestly want all of our players who have achieved that Class 2 or Class 1 status to be in tip-top shape ahead of Acropolis number 3. Same goes for Aoud, of course, the reigning champion of Acropolis 2, recently said that he should be able to make the event, so I'm very excited about that. And all I can say is the tourney games are going to be splendid. Thanks for joining us for this match. Tomorrow we've got another match of Cosmonarchy in the pipe. I'll see you guys then. Peace.